Good morning, church family. Wonderful to be with you all once again. I want to share a story of growing up in Gainesville. When I was about 13 years old, my parents sold their house and my grandmother sold her house, and we all moved into a house together. Now at 13, let me tell you, living with your grandmother was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. She was just the best, and I still think of her fondly daily. And the reason why, well, there's so many reasons, but to get to the point, I think it was that she was so open. We had this great big house. My parents had their master suite on one end, and my grandmother had her own master suite on the other side of the house. My sister and I, we were sort of in bedrooms in the middle. And it was interesting as I think about it now, her area that she had her own bedroom, she had her own bathroom, she had her own sitting room, she had her own door to come and go as she pleased. She could have lived an independent life. She even had her own mini fridge. She had everything she needed right there. So the fact that her door was always open, that her life was always open, that instead of being a recluse, living a separate life, she was involved in my life and my family's life intimately and daily, supporting me, encouraging me, and teaching me that if I ever, in my teenage years, decided to pull away and be a little difficult and a little pushy, don't talk to me, I'm a teenager, you don't know anything, I know everything, she was quick to redirect me and to bring me back and to say, no, Stephen, live a life that's open, invite people in, be respectful, be kind, listen as twice as much as you speak, and live a loving life as this, the life that she modeled daily for me, living in that house all together. One thing I had to share is so sweet that I still think of her. Being a teenager, when you're in high school, you guys know if you're going through this now, you got to get up really early. And sometimes sleep is such a precious commodity, you'll take just a few more minutes before you have to rise and shine. So knowing this, that my grandmother's door was always open, if I didn't want to get up right away and I knew my mom was quick to come and rise me out of bed, I would sneak over to my grandmother's room, catch a few more winks over there, and just buying a little precious time before my mom would realize what was going on, and she'd come in and fish me out. And there my loving grandmother would sit there acting coy as if she didn't know I was sleeping in the room and allowing me to get those extra bit of shut-eye. So wonderful she was. And so being that open and being that kind, it brings me to our gospel lesson that we have this morning. You see, it's Jesus, and the story goes like this from Mark chapter 7. They brought to Jesus a deaf man who had an impediment in his speech. And they begged him to lay hands on him. And so he took him aside in private, away from the crowd, and he put his fingers in his ear, and he spat and touched his tongue. Then looking up at heaven, Jesus sighed and said, Ephphatha, that is, be open, be open. And immediately his ears were open, his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly. And then Jesus ordered them not to tell anyone, but the more he ordered them, the more zealously they proclaimed, for they were astonished beyond measure, saying that he has done everything well. He even makes the deaf to hear and the mute to speak. I listened to this story today, and I wonder, what if we were open to this story? So open that we could put ourselves in the shoes of the deaf man, of the man who couldn't speak and he couldn't hear. And what if we realized that it was Jesus reaching out to us, opening our ears, loosening our tongues? How would we hear our neighbors? How much more would we listen to one another? How much sweeter would our speech be if we were open to this, to realize that Jesus is reaching down to perform this miracle for all of us? What a world this would be. Instead of living in a divided house where one of us are on one side and the other is on the other, never to meet in the middle, but instead, Jesus would break down those borders. We could come into the center. We could sit at the kitchen table, break bread, and listen and have fellowship and speak with loving kindness and hear what our neighbor has to say. What if Jesus did that? What if Jesus is doing that? Amen.